YouTube broadcast over in the room. Thank you very much. If you want to hit the go button then, and that'd be wonderful. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all right. You're all well and warm enough. I've gone for the collar today to try and keep the neck in the right heating. I'm the Councillor Mike Adams. I'm the chair of the committee, and I would like to welcome you all to the meeting of the Place Select Committee, which is being broadcast live and recorded for publication. We'll dive straight in to agenda item 1, which is appointment of chairman. So that's to note the full council decision on the 7th of December of myself, Councillor Mike Adams, as the chairman of the Place Select Committee, which will be in place for the remainder of the municipal year 23-24. Hello. Agenda item 2. Minutes of the last meeting. So if we can have approval of the minutes from the committee, please. Take a vote. Show of hands if we're all happy with the minutes of the last meeting. Okay, wonderful, thank you. If we can sign those then. Okay, agenda item 3, apologies for absence, please.
So we have substituting John Wilmot, substituting for Elizabeth Williamson, Kane Oliver, apologies, John O'Lee, substituting for Jonathan Wheeler, and Eric Kelly, substituting for Roger Upton.
Yes, Councillor Kay.
So I think my name is mentioned as Kelly. It's Kerry, Kerry. Thank you.
I can confirm that is correct. Councillor Cott.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, and congratulations on your appointment to chairmanship of this committee. It's not an apology as such, just more of an apology for lateness. Councillor Gordon Wheeler, as my deputy, will be attending, but he's currently on the council business, but hoping to be with us by 11 o'clock.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Yes, Councillor Saddington.
Thank you, Chairman. Just for clarification, everybody who needs to know does know that I'll be leaving at 11:30. Unavoidable because I've changed committees.
No, wonderful. Thank you very much for the heads up again. Anybody else with anything else before we move on to the next agenda item? Okay, wonderful. So agenda item 4 is declarations of interest. If any councillor or officer has an interest in the matter of the agenda, you should declare it now. Please raise your hand if you have any interest to declare. Councillor Lee.
Chairman, just to be on the safe side, obviously we're talking about libraries and school dinners. My children use both at the schools, just to be on the safe side.
Okay, I better put one in for that as well then. Anybody else? Well, that's it. Oh yes, Councillor Hoyt.
Similar to Councillor Lee, I'm a service user of the libraries as well as my immediate and extended family.
Can I put an overall, an overall declaration of interest for using of the service and using of the libraries, please, and the roads and what else we got? Anybody got electric vehicle while we're in it? No. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for your declarations of interest. So we'll move straight on to agenda item 5, which is Highways Joint Innovation and Continuous Improvement Plan. I'll ask Councillor Neil Clark, MBE, to start proceedings. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chairman, and congratulations on becoming chairman of this very important scrutiny committee. And I'm very pleased to present this report, and I have a lot of team with me, officers, and also Danmar, MD of VIA, with me as well to support me. And it's very interesting to hear that everybody in the room uses the roads, which is quite surprising. But that's an indication. The reason I mentioned that, Chairman, is because that's an indication of how important this item is, because it's probably one of the few areas of the council activities where everybody is involved and everybody uses the roads in some shape or form. So this is an update on progress of the review and also of the highways activities, and the highways review that took place, some elements of that highways review have already been achieved. There are others that are ongoing, but I think the whole thing to emphasise here is this is one of continuous, not just improvement, but also continuous challenge. And we need to be asking ourselves, to check and balance to make sure we're continuing to do the right thing to provide the best possible service we can within, obviously, the constraints, like we all have, of finances and resources, etc. But what I am pleased is that the thrust of the highways review has become embedded in the culture of the organisation, both from the officers' point of view in the council and also in VIA as well. And Dan Marr, who I mentioned earlier, he's doing a cracking job making sure that that culture is embedded in the delivery of the services on behalf of the council as well. Just wanted to emphasise, in case or a reminder, that the highways review was cross-party, so every party was involved in the outcome of that review. And in there also there was a recognition of the impact of severe weather, and that's been part of the review, is us planning for winter weather, and obviously we're coming into that area of the year at the moment where gritting has started, and we're well aware of the impact of bad weather on the road surfaces, etc., which always needs to be taken into account. I think another important aspect of the review has been communications with residents. Residents can now go on the website and they can see for themselves where repairs are going to be done. Resources is always a challenge, but one of the big achievements as well is the right repair, right first time, and when a road is closed for, or partially closed for repairs, then that opportunity is taken to do other work on that road at the same time. And I think the main thing to note, Chairman, is on page 15, paragraph 21. I won't read them all out, but you have a list there of all the volume of activities that is carried out across the whole county, and that just gives a good indication of the amount of work that is being carried out. So I suppose I'll finish that, Chairman, by actually posing a question back to you, which you may like to answer during the course of the discussion. Is that future sort of 6-month updates, which are, updates are given to members, but maybe you might like to tell us what sort of information you would like to see in future updates ongoing. And with that, obviously, as I say, I have an excellent team as officers here to support, and any questions that you like to pose, I'm sure we can answer them between us.
Thank you very much for that. Well, I'm going to take the opportunity while I'm sat here to ask the first question. I might even come in with some data that I'd like to see in the future. That'd be wonderful. Now you've asked me that. But the first thing from me is, there's obviously a lot of councillors here representing obviously the county of Nottinghamshire today, as opposed to their local areas. But I think one of the key things that I'd like to understand, and just to ensure that as this is a continual improvement, as you've rightly stated, how do we ensure that any issues that members are having, whether that be continually or not, get the necessary attention they deserve, and if the attention that they believe it deserves hasn't carried out for whatever reason, that the escalation process is fully in play to ensure that those things can get looked at.
Obviously, every repair is vitally important because, as indicated at the very beginning, everybody sees the roads, everybody knows that there are issues constantly arising, and it's always a big issue to try and allocate the right resources and priorities as urgently as possible. So in escalation, then issues are escalated up through the district managers and then up through the managers, and ultimately messages through to VIA as well. I don't know whether either Mark or whether Gary would be able to give any additional information.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Clark. Thanks for the question, Chair. I think the district manager is the first port of call, and obviously, if members then aren't satisfied with that answer, they can escalate it to a lady called Jo Horn, who is responsible for all the district managers. But in the end, if you're concerned with the response that you're getting from VIA colleagues, and most of the time that response is correct, you've always got the opportunity to come to either me or one of my team to investigate the matter further. So that would be the route of escalation.
Cool, thank you. And just on the data set, if we could, I just wondered if we could include what we've in comparison to years as well in the future, so we could see like a timeline of where we are. There's a fantastic body of work represented here, and I think it's it's a credit that we managed to deliver the level as a council that is delivered. But I would like, it'd be good to see that comparison, see where the progressions are, and see maybe where there's areas that could be looked at for future discussions, that sort of thing. So that's just a note, really. You don't.
Yeah,
come back.
yes, it's perfectly reasonable in the comparison, and actually by comparing them, hopefully that will show improvement each year.
Yeah,
and that's obviously the aim.
Wonderful, thank you very much. So I'm going to open it up to the floor now, and the first speaker I've got is Councillor Lee.
Chairman, thank you. The two issues that I have, and don't get me wrong, this is a great report, and the county council are doing lots of work, and the numbers and the figures of the work you are doing are unbelievable. Let's just get that straight. Let's start with the positives. The one thing that I'm finding is communication. It's not really communication with something that we're doing wrong, it's just communication as a whole. So example, most of the roads that are in my area are either unadopted highways due to development, or we have the A1, A46. Like, we know we're not responsible for those, but the amount of criticism we get when certain things aren't done, so flooding on the A1 recently, lights not working on unadopted roads, pavements, and we're getting complaints, our officers are getting complaints, we have to say, sorry, it's not us, and it's a weekly occurrence, or the councillor like myself is getting weekly occurrence, where we need to have better communication with residents, so we're not getting 4, 5, 6 requests a week on roads we don't adopt, and we're making it clear what we adopt, what we can do, what we are able to do, because that alone must take up so much time for officers that we are constantly replying to the same things, and who people need to contact. So if it is an A1 situation, Highways England, who they need to contact, who they need to go through. It's a non-adopted road, Middlebeck, where I represent, example, but this is the same thing across the county, because we get a massive swathe of major development, who they need to go to get a light fix, who they need to go to get a pavement fix. And then on my last point is I'm a wheelchair user. I don't use it very much, but I am a wheelchair user. I have a prescription for a wheelchair. And if you haven't ever been in a wheelchair and tried to get around, I'll advise you to do it for a day. Go out as officers, get in a wheelchair and go and do it for a day, because even pavement that looks superb to a wheelchair user, the slightest error in the pavement can cause a major issue, can cause you to tip, can cause you to fall, it can make it difficult. And I would say, just if you get the chance in the summer to maybe go out as officers in wheelchairs and use wheelchairs, you will, as I say, walk a day in somebody's shoes or use somebody's wheelchair for a day. You will then start to understand the issues that you might not think, and something that I don't think if I'm in my wheelchair, and it might open your eyes to the bigger issues that I don't think are being addressed at the moment. Because why would you look at certain things? Because it's not something that you have to do. But that's all I'd ask.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Clark.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Apologies, Chairman. I'll just switch that off. Excellent timing. Excellent timing. Right, communications. Yeah, well, I can identify straight away with the highway authority versus national highways, because on the A52 coming towards here, there've been issues on it, and people complain to us, and we've had to then get onto national highways and transfer the complaints over to them. So yes, that is an ongoing issue, and the answer would be is maybe we ought, if we haven't already, and I'll ask Gary just to confirm in a second, but is to circulate the contacts, email and so on for national highways. In terms of the communications, I did mention earlier about website, etc., and how you can go on there and see where repairs are being done. So I think we have gone some way already towards improving that communication. It's like a lot of things, it can never be absolutely perfect. There's always room for improvement, but I think we do inform the residents an awful lot more than we did a year, 2 years ago, etc. I'll just ask either Gary or Dan if you want to expand on the communications aspect.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Lee. We do have as part of this, we do have a highways communications board. So I'll take what you've raised into that board and see what the ideas are to improve that. There is information on our website about the different adoptions, but I don't think that always necessarily lands completely with the public, and it's been an issue that's been going on for many years. So I'll take it into that highways communications board and see what ideas we come up with to try and improve it. But I think what we need to do as well in member communications, like the severe weather booklet that's been circulated to all members recently, talking about our preparations for winter. We just need to make sure that in there it talks about the various agencies as well. But a common problem, as you identified, is around those unadopted roads as well. So we'll take that into that communications board and see what else we can do.
Can I just come back to you, Mr. Wood, just on your point around communication? I'm right in saying that we do letters to residents as well within areas where work is about to commence. That happens too. What's the criteria for that? Just as is it around within a quarter of a mile? Is it what sort of how do we address that?
I think it depends on the scheme. It depends on the area that are going to be impacted by the scheme. So there isn't a specific definition, but we try and communicate with all of the residents that it's going to have an impact on, so that they're aware of the works. They can contact via staff to make any arrangements if there's for instance, a wedding or there's a house removal going on. And for some of the major schemes as well, we communicate with the residents afterwards to try and get their feedback so that we can improve. And Dan and the VI colleagues have been very good at doing that recently. A lot of that was refreshed as part of the highways review, and it feeds in as well with the web page that we've got where people can see where works have been done as well. You can go now and see where works have been done, and we've been using QR codes on the letters as well, so that for some sites we've been doing scheme surveys as well about what they thought of the scheme or how they feel about the works that have taken place.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's really important, especially to get into people that don't have access to the internet or unable to. I think that's really good. And just on Councillor's other point around wheelchair access to pavements and things like that, where does the guidance come from on when we renew a pavement or a surface? Is that a national highway guidance, or where does that information come from to ensure that those that do require to access pavements via wheelchair or other forms are done in the right way?
Yeah, so all of the documentation that the County Council has, whether it's our high asset management strategy and vision, or whether you're talking then about the highway inspection manual, which is what the inspectors use on a day-to-day basis to make decisions, they're all based on national guidance. And as part of that national guidance, obviously we do take into account the needs of all highway users. I think it's a valid challenge. So again, Dan and I can take that away and consider it further. We do spend quite a lot of money as well putting in crossing points for wheelchair users at junctions at those points, but it's a point well made, and I think it's one that we need to take away and reflect.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Councillor Gowland, please, next. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. I just second Councillor Lee's suggestion that we were all of us maybe try using or pushing a wheelchair. Can I ask? I totally agree with him as well about having the data tabulated by year. It would also be useful if it included the cost per year, the total cost, and also the amount of Viafix used. The reason I say that is I just got a hunch the amount of Viafix being used might be going up, partly because something an officer said, and I wondered if we could be told about that. And I realise that may just be because the requirements are so great that it's impossible to keep up with the patching. It mentions resource allocation for winter weather. I would like to know how much, if at all, the highways is over the original budget for this year, and to what extent the work is limited by finance or staffing at the moment. And finally, on the point about knowing who's responsible for what, there just seems to be an awful lot of complexity, particularly about groundwater drainage, where it goes from one drain belonging to council, or drain or gully belongs to council, into 7 Trent gullies. I appreciate it's probably not a matter for this council, but it does feel that we should be making representations to other people to try and simplify that process. Thank you.
Councillor, do you want to
Let's go straight to Gary Wood, please.
Thank you, Gav. Try that. Have you got a...
How's that? That's working, isn't it?
Yeah. They've landed. You're all right.
So thanks for your questions, Councillor Gowan. Taking them in order, we can obviously look at the format and include the cost in the future, and also include the Viafix usage. I think last time it came to committee in December 2022, there was a 61% reduction in Viafix being reported, and there is still a reduction in the use of Viafix. However, with the winter period, there is a need sometimes to keep the highway safe and do those initial repairs. I think the difference since the highways review is that the intention then is to follow up those repairs with more permanent patching, and we've seen a lot of that across the network and had quite a lot of positive feedback from the public around that as well. I think in terms of cost and budget, and to what extent where we are with the budget, this year on the capital programme, we've had an extra injection of money from government, so we've had an extra around 2.4 million. So that's been really helpful, because we have had some in-year issues, some of which are the result of Storm Babette. So that money's been helpful on the capital side, but the capital budget is heading towards being probably on budget, or maybe slightly overspent by maybe £1 million in that sort of order. On the revenue budget, that is heading to be spent on budget. Your question about is it limited by finance? Obviously, there's always more that we can do, but the service standards that we've got for highways, they will, as it currently stands, they will all be met inside the budgetary allocation. But obviously, if there's more severe weather coming, then things could be at risk, and we may have to consider whether additional budget might be required at that point. But that's the general position. And you asked about drainage as well. So there's different elements to drainage. Obviously, when a person's property is flooded, and if there's 5 or more properties flooded, then we do something called a Section 19 report, which I know you're familiar with because they then come to this committee. But in terms of highway drainage, we do have a dedicated resource in Matt Duckworth, and Matt has a team working for him and he also works really closely with the district managers and Kevin Heathcote, who control all the gully emptying. But it can sometimes be a complicated picture. So what Matt will do where there's issues, he will investigate those, and he will involve the
various agencies, whether it's Severn Trent, the Internal Drainage Board, the Environment Agency, riparian owners, and so forth, to try and get to the point where we've got a solution for the public. But it's not, unfortunately, just one agency.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to Councillor Tom Hollis, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, welcome to the committee. I'm sure you'll know this is the most exciting committee on the council, so I'm pleased to have you here. So really, I want to focus on some of the perception and maybe some of the claims. So obviously all the reports ultimately sounds great, but in reality the public perception doesn't reflect what you think is happening on the ground. But simply, I think you're marking your own homework. I want to ask about the compensation claims and the process. As you know, the number of claims of damage to vehicles has rocketed in the past few years. In 2019, the amount of compensation claims against this council was 597, with 93 settled. This year to date, there's been a whopping 1,333, and that was from the start of October, with only 73 settled claims. Would you accept that there must be a trajectory with the number of claims and the state of the broken roads and pavements? Resident after resident has been in touch to complain about the compensation process. With some of the stories we hear about, could certainly fill a full episode of Rip Off Britain or Watchdog. Many residents give up at the first hurdle. There is no compensation form available on the NCC website. Residents with damaged vehicles have to call customer services to request a form. There is an attempt to talk them out of it by customer service staff. Residents tell me they've been told not to bother as they won't win. Residents tell me the way this council acts is abhorrent. If someone claims, then the council simply say that they have carried out ad hoc inspections just before. So under the current process, if the council indicate that they plan to fix roads, then it doesn't matter that the residents damage their cars or put their lives at risk on our broken roads. Would the Cabinet member, and in fact the Chairman, agree with me that the Nottinghamshire County Council is more interested in its reputation and saving money than is about residents' vehicles? And if Martin could take a note of this, the Independent Alliance Group would like to suggest some recommendations to this committee, and that is for the Place Committee to review the process for the compensation claims, and 2, for the compensation form to be available online and then subsequently cascaded to all members of the council so we could share that with our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Hollis. Quite a bit to deal with there. Neil, over to you, please.
Yeah, thank you. Well, in terms of the perception, I mean, it's hardly likely that whilst there is a single pothole still around on the roads, people aren't going to think that it's great, are they? And wherever there are potholes, etc., in front of their house or where they go, then they're bound to be saying that the condition isn't great. What I can say for sure is that overall the condition has improved considerably, and Councillor Hollis knows as well as anybody that if we had sort of 10 times the amount of money available, then obviously a lot more would be done. So we have to be very careful and make sure that the money is spent efficiently and wisely. And of course, I'm not going to agree that the County Council thinks more about their reputation than people's cars, because that's the whole aim and duty of the council is to keep the roads in the best condition that they're able to, and therefore it would be great if the roads were completely perfect for everybody to drive along. But back in the real world, repairs are necessary on the roads, and therefore we have to deal with those as efficiently as possible, and do an excellent job in carrying out that work on our behalf. In terms of compensation claims, I'm glad to say that's above my pay grade, Mr. Chairman, because that's about insurance, and that's not something I get involved with. So I'll ask the officers if they can give you some more information on the processing of insurance claims.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Yeah, I think it's something that we're probably going to have to come back with a written response, because the responsibility for insurance claims sits with finance colleagues who I don't think are in the room with us today to be able to answer those specific points. So I suspect we need to give a written response to those questions.
And that's in terms of the obviously one of the requests from Councillor Hollis was to add it to the form online as well. So I'm guessing that would be part of that same question to finance. Yeah. So if we can just make sure that happens, that'd be. If you want to come back.
So just to clarify, so when somebody puts a claim into the council, if you ignore highways, has absolutely no knowledge or update of what happens when somebody complains. So the fact that this person then receives documentation to say when this pothole's been inspected, highways has nothing to do with that. The fact that that pothole then seems to miraculously get fixed the next day, highways has nothing to do with that. That's all done by finance. Is that what I've just been told?
No, just for clarity, the insurance claims that come in, the people that deal with the claim and are responsible for making the decision about whether the claim is valid under law, that sits with our one of our finance functions. It's in one of the finance teams. Obviously, finance colleagues then, it's with our risk and insurance management function. Those colleagues speak to highways and get that data, and obviously we do look at that data as well when we're making decisions about schemes, when we're making investment decisions as well. So we are part of the process, but we don't own that process.
Chairman, can I just clarify? Councillor Hollis's question related to compensation claims, which is an insurance process, which is different to remedying the actual defects. I mean, obviously, highways will carry out the actual repairs, but highways don't process an insurance claim. So it's two different functions, and they shouldn't be conflated.
Thank you for that. I'm guessing in the case of a similar instance, really, if you were to bump your car, everything's done at that point, and then obviously it goes away and cars get fixed, etc. And I imagine it's a similar process in terms of the roads as well. Once they're aware of a defect, that defect would then arguably get repaired in order to prevent it happening. Yeah. Go on, Mr. Wood. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's worth everybody being aware that if a vehicle is damaged, obviously that's unfortunate. But the way the law works is it's when the county council is aware of that defect. That's one of the things that hinges on in terms of whether compensation is payable. And like I say, that process is with our risk and insurance team. Obviously, when we're aware of that defect, we will go and do inspections, and if it does meet criteria, then we will fix it. So we're involved in the process, but the questions that are being asked are ones that really need to be dealt with by our risk and insurance colleague.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Over to Councillor Eric Kerry, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Going back to paragraph 21, the data of performance so far in volumes across the network. See that the first item was 151 emergencies. Does that include things like road closures due to the storms we've had in Babet, etc., recently? Because there's no indication of that exercise, certainly in my patch. I reported flooding, and we got the teams out and did road closures. I thought that was really, really good work done by highways at that time. So is that hidden away in the emergencies attended bit about flooding? Secondly, it'd be interesting to see on some of these items where it says, say, potholes filled, does the system allow the response times and how to be analysed? So when one's reported online or via member or whatever, is each job issued to highways? Is there a start when the job was started and when it was completed? So can we see like the information about the time it takes to get the solution? Thank you.
Mr. Wood. Thank you.
Dan's just passed me a note with the answers.
We'll get on University Challenge if you do that, you know.
So these figures It's on. Sorry. Yeah, these figures are pre-Storm Babette, so all of the extra emergencies are not included. Dan's just passed me the total number of incidents. So the incidents for Storm Babette in October, there was over 500 incidents just in October, which reflects all of that activity. In terms of response times, we do have a performance framework between NCC and fire for response times for various things, so we can include those in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Over to Councillor Callaghan, please. Thank you.
Well, just before I start with two questions, I just would like to say, like Councillor Tom Hollis has said, and maybe it's nothing to do with the highways, but actually, over a year ago, my car was damaged by a pothole. £800 worth of damage I got to my suspension on my car. The next morning, that pothole was filled in. I've not heard anything from the claims department.
Councillor Callaghan, if I can just interject, sorry. This committee is really for
Yeah,
people
but I'm
talking
saying
about
that because
Nottinghamshire.
I'm saying it
I
to
know,
Councillor Hollis,
I know.
and I'm supporting what Councillor Hollis is
I
saying.
understand that. I
But
suppose
I will go on to my next question.
if you would,
then.
thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Right, and I do agree that Fire has done quite a lot of work, looking at paragraph 21. However, I can see that, they've done 22,629 potholes, but in my area, how many times of those potholes, the same potholes being refilled? So I'd like to have a breakdown of how many times you've gone out for such as Peafield Lane, because I know they've been filled several times, and that is a really bad area in my ward. Also, you've cleaned 25,082 gullies, and again, we've got 180,000 gullies, and again, we've had storms and we've had flooding in my area as well. And I would like to know if those gullies had been cleaned out in Plesley, and also, if they had, that's great. But when we've got areas that are potential for flooding, so the flood happened and lots of houses got flooded in Plesley, but a few days later we had bad rain again, and we got quite a bit of flooding in that area again, and people came out. So I just wondered, what would you need to be able to empty all of these gullies? And how is that financial? Is it something that we need to invest more in? I know we're over budgeted, but if that prevents something, it's a thing that needs looking at.
Yeah, so if we can focus on the generic aspects of that in terms of a flooding event and what is resolved as a result, as Councillor Callaghan has pointed out, and then in terms of your own area of Plesley, I'm sure Sue Jakes' team would be happy to fill you in on anything that's happened as a result in that area, or if not, Mr. Wood's team in terms of gully cleansing and the volume that's been in on that specific area as well. But if we just, not now, obviously after the meeting, but just focus on the generic, if you wouldn't mind, thank you.
Yeah, can I just first of all, in terms of the number of bottles filled, etc., I'll ask Gary Wood to, refilled. I'll ask Gary Wood to answer that. But I just wanted to give a general. Obviously, it doesn't relate to Plesley, because I'm sure that you'll be able to ask your district manager how many gullies are actually cleaned in your particular area, because all the district managers will have that information. But in a general nature, I've been discussing with the officers and with Denmark via several times about us increasing considerably, and not just increasing by one or two, but having a major campaign to get round and get the gullies cleared, because clearly as a result of the storm episode it did create problems. However, we do need to identify, I'm not saying there weren't any gullies blocked, I can't claim that, of course there were gullies blocked, but not all the gullies by any means were blocked with mud or debris. Some of them were actually blocked with water, because there was just so much rainfall that the gullies and the culverts were full. And if there's nowhere for the water to go, the gullies are just going to back up. So all I'm saying is it's a whole mixture, and I am not claiming that there are no gullies blocked, because of course there are. However, what we want to do is to minimise as much as possible for the future, and that's what I've been talking to officers about, implementing an additional campaign. But you've also identified yourself, we have to then temper that with, again, finite resources, and we've got to just try and make sure we can do that within the constraints of the finances that we've got available to us. But gullies, emptying, grips on the verges is in order to facilitate drainage is absolutely very much on the agenda. But perhaps I'll just ask Gary Wood if he could talk about the refilling of potholes, etc.
Yeah, I think this is a vexed question, because it's really difficult to when we record, when we're doing pothole filling, we record where they are, but we don't record to the level of detail. So you might fill a pothole and then you may have to go out and fill one adjacent to it. I think the whole thrust, one of the key thrusts that came out of the highways review was, let's try and avoid all of that in keep potholing, and let's do more professional patching works. And so that's what has happened. So the gangs have doubled, the efficiency of the gangs has doubled as well. So you've actually got a fourfold increase in the amount of professional patching activity that has taken place from before the highways review to now. I think we could probably bring that to life a little bit more in the statistics that we've got. So the whole thrust and direction of travel is to avoid those temporary repairs wherever possible. But I take your point in terms of the question that you're raising. So we'll see how we can bring that to life in the data that we share in the future. And that's one of the reasons that we're keen to have all that information available for residents as well on the web page, so that they can see that. And just to follow up on the drainage side, obviously flooding is caused by all sorts of different factors, rivers, streams, watercourses, and in some instances it could be as a result of gullies being blocked. What we're doing as a result of Storm Babette is reviewing all of the areas where we have an enhanced gully emptying frequency. So across the network, in the large number of gullies that you mentioned, we have some that are done at a higher frequency than the others, bearing in mind that those areas are susceptible to flood risk. So we're reviewing that and incorporating it. And at the moment, we're revisiting all of those areas that are flooded to make sure that the systems are working as well as they can. And I would say, if residents do see, or councillors do see, gullies that are blocked, then please let us know about it, either through the NOTS app or through your district manager.
Thank you. I think the NOTS app has just had an update, I believe, as well. So you can go onto Play Store and or whichever well-known other mobile phone manufacturer store you use, and get it from there. So I think I've used it myself, and it's working well. So over to Councillor Richard Butler, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a couple of questions and an observation, if I may. First of all, paragraph 5 refers to the governance and this joint innovation and continuous improvement board. What's the makeup of the board? And I see it meets every 8 weeks, well, every 2 months. So who's on it? And then what happens to the findings? How does it all work to feed back in? And then on paragraph 13 onwards, we refer to the right repair, right time. How do we think it's going, generally speaking, so far? Are we learning any lessons from what might have gone well and maybe not so well? And the reason I say that, and I'm not being negative, but I suspect some of the roads I'm aware of have had some of this new way of working, but I'm a little bit worried that there may be signs it might not be as perfect as one might imagine in sort of terms of repairs needing to be done again. And then the observation is when you're reporting potholes, which, like other colleagues, I do spend a lot of time doing that. I don't use the app, I do it on the computer, but I know it's the same thing. It's a good system, and it's really helpful. It flags back and gives you a reference number. But of course, you can only report one at a time. And I still wonder why it is that once you've reported one pothole, and yes, you've got the reference number and they're going to come and either patch it or whatever, within a yard or two, there is another one the same. And you can't, but the system won't let you report that, because when you put the pin thing on the map showing you want to report another pothole, because of scale of the map and all the rest of it, it implies that the other pothole is already in the system. So I guess that's probably a technical thing, an IT thing or whatever. So I think the point or the question I've got, and this has been asked before, and also I know that the public wonder this, is can we not give the repairers, the inspectors, an opportunity to use their initiative and time, that when they're repaired the one pothole you've repaired that's there, if you've got another one literally within a stone's throw, can they not do that at the same time? And I'm just wondering whether we are looking at that it's a serious point. I know it might sound a little bit frivolous, but otherwise it gets a bit frustrating where you have to then report yet another hole. And as I say, sometimes because it's so near on the map where you've just reported one already, you can't do it. So thank you.
Thank you, and Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Well, just the very last point that Councillor Butler mentioned, yeah, I'm sure we've all experienced that, because I've experienced it as well, where there's only a couple of feet away or whatever. And yes, we've talked about that, and so the operatives are well aware now that, you know, look around you, don't just focus in on one, and if there's another one just a couple of feet away, then deal with it, and you know, don't wait for some more paperwork to tell you. The rest of the question I'll just refer to Mark Walker.
Yeah, thanks for that. So yeah, Councillor Butler, in terms of the board and the makeup, it's made up of senior managers from both the county council and from VIA as well. So we meet every 8 weeks to sort of drive forward the work to make sure that we are on that journey. We recognise not everything is fixed yet, but we have that meeting. We draw in also experts from VIA or from the client side, if you like, to pick up particular topics. But it's made up of myself, Dan Marr, Gary Wood, people in the VIA side, like the directors there, Neil Hodgkin, etc. So there's a whole range of the right people are on there to keep taking us down this journey. In terms of the piece you mentioned about when a repair is being done, the quality of it, obviously we're trying to move to the right repair, right time methodology, where we're doing larger scale patching so that we try not to have to go back to the same area. Clearly, you know, the safety of road users, it has to be first and foremost, so we have to do temporary fixes still with VIA Fix in order to protect the most vulnerable users. But we do that we feel higher quality levels of repair now. We'll take back your feedback and obviously into that board though, and to maybe feedback in future meetings in terms of how that is what data we have to prove that things are getting better in that sense. Thank you.
We'll just go to Mr. Ward as well.
Yeah, I think it's probably worth mentioning as well that on the patching side, the frontline staff have been involved in developing it, and the frontline staff are giving feedback as well. So that is then picked up as part of the process, which I think is really important.
I just wonder if we can just add to that. Can you just explain exactly what we've moved to in terms of we fill with VIA Fix, then what happens if we need what is the actual process?
So where we get reports of defects, obviously an inspector goes out and looks at them, or if we get inspections done as part of the normal inspection process, then those defects are categorised, and if they're imminent safety defects, they have to be dealt with in 24 hours. So we're still having to use in those instances VIA Fix, but the idea is then that those areas where VIA Fix has been used, if that's what we're using, is they're followed up with permanent repairs. So that is the difference from before, whereas some of those repairs weren't followed up. The idea now is that we follow all those repairs up with permanent repairs. The staff on the ground, both the inspectors, picking up on Councillor Butler's point, and also then the operatives that are doing the work are empowered more than they used to be. So they're given more freedom to decide if there's extra things to be picked up at the same time, and they've given more freedom about the area of work that's repaired. obviously all of that has to be done, and it is constrained to some degree by budgetary constraints. So that's what we've moved to. So it's that right repair at the right time and the move towards professional patching.
Brilliant, thank you. I appreciate that. And just to the final question is over to you, Councillor Wilmot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Great privilege to be on this committee. Can I say, first of all, I'd like to second the proposal by Councillor Hollis, if it's humanly possible to do that. But then I'd like to say, since November the 11th, being a councillor for over 30 years in different aspects of counselling, it's been the most stressful time I have ever had. And I'll start off by going through some of the issues that were real problems.
I can just interject, sorry, before just to sort of really get the remit.
What to do with roads?
Okay, not specifics though. If you can talk in general terms,
yeah,
that would be wonderful. If you wouldn't mind, in general terms, please, rather than actual roads, they can go via your district manager. Thank you.
Well, first of all, can I say, a fortnight before Remembrance Day, the march for the Remembrance Day took place, I did put a request in for the area of Watnall Road, Beardmore Street, Byron Street, and a few other roads to be looked into.
That is specific.
Yeah.
So if you can talk, because obviously here in this committee we're representing the overall people of Nottinghamshire, so they won't know your Remembrance Parade. But if you're talking in terms of closing roads, for example,
all I'm saying,
that would be great, because you've got a district manager that can deal with all of that. Thank you.
It was the most stressful time I've ever had, because I reported a number of deficiencies in that road, in that area, and including one area where it had been repaired, and almost immediately a big pothole appeared once again, even with the new surface that had been put on, and it was very, very stressful, because there were a lot of elderly people walking that road, and they were under pressure themselves to make sure they didn't fall down in some of the potholes that were on the road. Can I say also, it's been a very stressful situation as far as the flooding is concerned. Some of the issues on the flooding in Hucknall, we spoke about at the full council meeting, and I hope that it will come to fruition, that somebody will find out the reasons for the flooding that went down from the area of Greenwood Avenue and Greenwood Avenue along Greenwood Vale and so forth. It was a 5-foot deluge of rain that came down there, 5 foot high, and almost the amount of damage was astronomical.
Is this a question around flood investigation? Is it what are we doing in terms of flooding? Okay.
Yeah.
Could we just answer that one first of all? What after a flooding event? What is the process for flood investigation after that?
Well, Chairman,
rather than specifics, please, if you want.
Flooding event investigation doesn't relate to the highways review that we're discussing, but in terms of flooding, then flood events where there are 5 or more properties actually have an ingress of water into the house, then that becomes a subject of a Section 19 report, and you're going to be getting quite a lot of them coming through this committee. So, in fact, you might even get a flood of them, Mr. Chairman.
Make a point that no dodgy jokes like that are allowed at all in this committee, unless specifically in the agenda item list. Thank you.
Right, okay. I'm sure they'll all go down the drain eventually. That is how flood investigations manifest themselves in terms of house flooding, and in terms of highway flooding. Then obviously that is part and parcel of our preventative measures in looking to see how we can mitigate flooding in the future, and of course gullies and other getting water off the road is a vital part of that. And I have to say that in the recent storm, there are some places that have been flooded that were never flooded ever before. So that just shows you the precedence of the volume of water that came down from the sky.
Thank you. I think hopefully, Councillor Wilmot, that gives you an idea. Obviously, if a property does get flooded, it does create a Section 19 report, which we'll be addressing in a future committee anyway. So we'll be able to get into the nitty gritty of that specifically. That's been in your area. Was there anything else you wanted to add as well?
Just to say that it's very commendable on all the repairs that's been done and so forth. I know people are working very, very hard on that situation, but it is a reality that many of the supposedly top class work that's now being done, the pothole are appearing again in the same place. So that has to be investigated, because I'm told what a brilliant job now everything's being done, and the water can't get underneath the repairs that are being done, but water is getting underneath. I know, yes, we had this terrible rain and so forth, but it has to be investigated thoroughly again why the potholes are being reappearing in the same spot after extensive work and brilliant work. It looked brilliant work, and yet this beautiful area on Beardall Street in Hucknall, a beautiful piece of work of 20 metres that was done, right in the middle again, a huge hole appeared. How can that happen? It needs investigating, as many other areas need serious investigation, because is the roads why is potholes appearing in areas that have been brilliantly done? Why? Can you tell me? Nobody can tell me. But somebody's got to tell me, and the people are getting onto me all the time, and it's putting me in a stressful position, and it'll be putting many of other councillors in a very stressful situation that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. So I suppose in terms of, if you like, repeat offending roads, if there is, what process do we have in place to, first of all, identify those, and secondly, look into something we can do to prevent those roads from failing in the future? Would that be a fair reflection? Thank you.
Well, I think to a certain extent, I think Gary did answer that actually, because we had a very similar question previously. I think he's largely answered it, but I don't know whether there's anything else to expand or say anything different. So.
Yeah, I'm not aware that this is a systemic issue, so I'm not aware it's a widespread issue that's being discussed here. I think that there might be specific locations, and obviously that specific location that you're talking about, I don't know whether that is as a result of, for instance, a Severn Trent sewer surcharging, and that causes carriageway damage, where it causes lift because of the volume of water. I think we need to remember with Storm Babette that it was a significant event. It's probably the most significant event during my 21 years here at the County Council in terms of the rainfall volumes. So, I can't answer the question around specifics, but I'm quite happy, as I have done before, to meet Councillor Wilmot out and about on his roads and go and have a look and see if we can work out why that's happened.
Every Chairman, for me, every month I do a complete walk of my whole area and identify anything that's gone wrong. And I mean, I've now it's my fourth time that I've reported about a gully or a grate in the centre of the road. Now I know it'll be probably Severn Trent, but around that grate is the sunken area, and it's making such a noise for the last 6 weeks, such a noise that it's keeping children from being able to sleep on Carlingford Road, which is just round the corner. It's so loud. And yet I have now reported it 4 times, and nobody's. Well, I don't know if anybody's been out to see it. It may be a situation.
Yeah. And I think you've just had a fantastic offer there to come out and see it. And I must say, considering you called it beautiful, I am desperate to see a picture of it myself, Councillor Wilmot. The beauties of tarmac.
Beauties in the eye of the beholder, Chairman.
Sorry, yes, exactly. But yeah, so I hope that addresses that. Thank you for that offer. I appreciate it, and I'm sure Councillor Wilmot will as well. Councillor Saddington.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to be very quick because I need to go. But I think this question has sort of partly been answered. When you see a pothole and it's filled with fire fix, as has been alluded to, very shortly afterwards it starts to lift, and we all know why, with the salt on the road and the fact that the water can get underneath and lift it. How is it that when these big patches are done on the road, which I have to say look very nice, how is it that usually, not always, because it's been alluded to that it doesn't, how do you stop the water going underneath that in the same way as it does a pothole and lift it again? Does it, or have you got a superb method when you've put the patch on of stopping water going underneath? It's probably a stupid question.
Not a stupid question in here, Councillor Harrington. And at this point, over to Gary.
Well, first of all, depending on the age of the road is less or more susceptible to water permeating in it. But the key thing when we do the patching, which is where we move to from the highways review, is that it's sealed both on its edges and also it's banded as well, sealed at the top, so that should help the repair. So that's the answer really.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, please do. Yeah. I hope everyone's had an opportunity. I think everybody's had a chance to say some things. So I thank you very much indeed for all of your comments, and thank you to the officers and the cabinet member and deputy cabinet member for their involvement in that as well, and obviously yourself as well. Thank you. Right, so we're going to dive straight into agenda.
I've got to report recommendations.
Oh, sorry, I've got recommendations too. Sorry, I'm getting very excited about this. Oh yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so just before we move to the recommendations, I just want to make a couple of comments. I think the discussion's been great, and I think one member of the committee spoke, and we're sure everything we can say anyway has been said. But it's really great to see everybody getting involved. The only thing I really wanted to say on behalf, I can't speak for the chairman, but I can speak for myself. I didn't think it was tasteful joking about people's homes being flooded by Councillor Clark, and certainly if Councillor Oliver was here.
Excuse me a second, what joke did I make about houses being flooded?
Chairman, if it's okay, Councillor Clark, we're here to scrutinise your.
No, but you're not here to make false claims against me personally.
If I can say that you said the phrase our committee was going to be flooded with Section 19 reports. Section 19 reports are only generated when 5 or more homes are flooded. We're not talking about the street being flooded. We're talking about people's homes having water in them, water from our highway, or streams that we're the flood authority for. So if you could excuse me by suggesting that the laughter that followed our committee will be flooded by Section 19 reports, I think you'd struggle to find anybody in the room that would suggest that you weren't making a joke of the situation. And I certainly, the reason I state it is I'm very blessed to be the vice chairman of this committee, and I don't want to be associated with that laughter, if that's okay. And then the final thing to say was just to make sure Martin has got word for word the recommendations of which has now been proposed and seconded.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I think you've got to be in difficult circumstances in a debate that's trying to really focus on the improvement. There's never been any doubt of the seriousness that I've seen exhibited by both the cabinet member and his deputy, as well as the flood team, all the officers, about the importance of flooding getting addressed, and that was well and truly seen by the level of work that was undertaken during that time. However, in this environment, we're all trying to deal with some difficult issues, and sometimes a lightness brings into a room, which is what a very difficult subject. And I'm sad for you if you felt that wasn't something that you could deal with. And I don't speak for Councillor Clark here when I say this, but I think that sometimes in very difficult situations, and we've all worked incredibly hard across the council to deal with a difficult, sometimes making light of something. And it was just a word. He wasn't making light specifically of people's actual flooding in their homes, Councillor Hollis. I didn't feel.
Appreciate it for families not spending the next 6 months in their own home, that they might not be very happy with that jest.
Well,
my suggestion.
I think you've made your point. Thank you. So recommendations then. So we'll take note of the recommendations from the independent group.
I'll read everything out.
Which,
I'll read everything out what I've got. Just firstly, obviously there's been a lot of chat about flooding. It's just to note that obviously there was a motion at council earlier in the month about the 2 areas of work for the committee with regard to flooding. So they've been added to work programme. So it's the actual review of the work, what happened in preparation to the storm, and then the actual review about gully cleaning. But with regards to the recommendations, obviously, as always, they're not quite worded exactly as I would like them, but they will be fine-tuned. So, firstly, the report we noted. Secondly, that the Cabinet Member for Transport and Environment, in consultation with officers, examines how communication with residents can be maximised on highways functions that are the responsibility of NCC and which are the responsibility of Highways England or other parties. That the Cabinet Member for Transport and Environment, in consultation with officers, considers what further activity can be carried out to ensure that the pavements are maintained in a way that is suitable for wheelchair users. Fourthly, with regard to the information to committee, obviously include all the information that's included in the report, but that the information be tabulated by year, the information on the amount of VIFIX used be included, and if possible, and obviously we realise this might be a bit difficult, but generally if information on pothole repair activity in areas could be included if possible. And then finally, because I think Gary Wood explained that with the insurance claims, it isn't actually something that they deal with, it is something that is in the different departments, so we don't really know an awful lot about it. So giving that, what I would say with regard to the Vice Chair's suggestions for recommendations, that I would word it slightly that further information on the process for making compensation claims for the damage of vehicles caused by damaged highways be circulated to members of the Place Select Committee, and then once that information has been received, the Chair and Vice Chair can then discuss how they would like to pursue that further if required.
Councillor Kerry?
I don't know if Mr. Elliott has missed out the response times element of the report.
Yeah.
And Martin, if I'm respectfully may say, it's not for you to decide the wording of our recommendation. The wording that we proposed and seconded and the committee members have discussed was that we review the process for compensation forms, for the compensation claims, and then secondly, that this committee suggests the compensation form be made available online. Of course, we aren't the decision-making committee, but we are suggesting that may be a good move.
I'm just trying to advise as the officer, the scrutiny officer, that I feel with the information we've had, I think to me it's a little bit soon to get to that point. I feel, but if you'd like, you move the recommendations. I think Councillor Wilmot is second.
While I respect your feelings,
let's have a vote on it. Let's have a vote on it. I mean, my view is that we'll take it away and look at it. That's my view. So you know, if Tom wants to vote on it now, then that's fine.
Shall we?
But we need to obviously. Sorry, one second. Well, Councillor Kerry.
Point of clarification, please, Chairman and our scrutiny officer. This is the place scrutiny. This is not finance scrutiny. We can only really, I believe, technically look at the aspects of that recommendation that reflect the work that can be done in place. So I think there's a little bit of danger in a recommendation that might affect another area. So I guess we need to look at what that situation is and make the right recommendation to be able to do anything here.
Yeah, well, spot on. That's exactly my thinking. So I think, look, I mean, it's up to you if you want to vote on it now. We can do that. But my preference would be that we take that away, look at it, determine exactly where it belongs and who it belongs to before we take any further action.
I think, Mr. Chairman, it just needs to be said that this has been a really lengthy discussion, and the recommendations that have been noted by the officer seems to have cherry-picked 50% of the stuff he personally feels should be on the recommendations, rather than actually what's been discussed. And when the Vice Chairman of the committee has made a very formal request, it's not within that officer's particular personal opinion whether he feels, as his state was, that it should be included in the recommendations or not. And I think Councillor Kerry said something very pertinent as well. His suggestion wasn't included in the recommendations, and he had to ask for a second time why it wasn't included. And I'd suggest that because the officer didn't feel personally that it should be included. It wasn't written down, whereas actually Councillor Kerry's point was very important and it should be included.
Councillor Kerry.
Yes, thank you for that, Councillor Hollis, and therefore I think you understand what we can and cannot do. So I therefore, like the words I used before, in the action I believe that we are able to do, I'd like to an amendment to the recommendation of Councillor Hollis and Councillor Wilmot to what I said.
Allowed to use the plastic cable runs across their pavements. If that's where we are, we need to tell people how to do that. They need to be told to do it in a way that allows people to get wheelchairs over them. You know, not just someone goes and buys one in, in B&Q. We need them to be defined and decided. And finally, there needs to be a link up with parking. You know, don't get me going right now on the absolutely insulting plans, proposals, in discussion document out on off-street shopper parking in West Bridgford, which has taken no account of EV charging. This needs to be looked at in the round in all sorts of areas of the council's work, not just in this case. So frankly, I'm really sad that you called it a success story, Councillor Clark, but I don't think it is.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, well, in terms of the technical aspects, then I'll ask Gary Wood to answer that. But the off-street parking is completely separate from electric vehicle charging, and the cable channel that I witnessed yesterday is absolutely flush with the pavement and wouldn't trouble any, whether it's wheelchair user or pushchair or anything. So it was what I would say is a perfect installation. So obviously there's always going to be criteria involved in applications, and not every particular site location can be dealt with because every location is different. So you can't put on a website every possible eventuality and technicality relating to a site location. But I think Gary Wood's probably got more information on the technicalities.
Thanks for your comments, Councillor Gann. I think there's two elements of the report. So if I just make that clear, just in case members haven't quite got the thrust of it. There's the pilot scheme. So it's an experimental scheme, national pilot scheme, which is trying to get us into a point where we can feedback nationally and say, through iteration, we've got to a workable position. So that is the cable pilot. So we're doing that in association with another couple of authorities nationally. And you're quite right, it does generate lots of issues, lots of problems, lots of practical issues on the ground. And we're trying to work through those. So recently, I became aware that a number of residents weren't willing to sign up to it because they had to accept liability in the future. So we've removed that now, so that some residents now will see that as something that they can do. But I take your point about the issues around parking and the issues around the full curb face. But because this is a pilot, it wasn't ever really going to be perfect from day one. So it is experimental. We probably didn't make that clear enough to residents or to members when we launched it. But I'm keen that we get those numbers up and we work through those problems with you and with the community. And if that means that in your particular area we need to have a meeting with those residents that have applied, then let's do that. Let's get the team inside VIA that are responsible for delivering it and have that conversation. The wider point in the paper is that we're in a position now where government have awarded us nearly 5.5 million. We're not quite there. We've submitted a full final business case, and that money will then allow for permanent installations of EV charging facilities on the highway and in other public spaces, and that's designed to go on the highway in those areas where there isn't off-street parking. So it's to enable residents then to have the choice about what vehicle type they purchase in the future, or lease or rent, with obviously the government's 2030 deadline coming up around the sale of vehicles. So I think I take your points around it not being perfect, but I'd like to work with you and like work with that community to try and get those things right in that national pilot. But the fact that the county council are leading a consortium of other authorities gives us an advantage in terms of procurement for that 5.5 million. And you're right, once we get that 5.5 million,
there's an issue about how do we manage parking on the street with all the complexities around that, and that's not just an issue for Nottinghamshire, that's a national issue.
Please do.
I think you're right. I think there was a lot of problems with the initial advertising scheme, and one of the things I'd forgotten when I was speaking just now was they were actually had to have an electric charging point on the house before they could apply, which was obviously very unfortunate for those 92 people who haven't now gone being successful. Thank you.
Do you want to come back with anything else? Happy with that?
No, just to make the offer to arrange to meet with your local residents and try and sort that out pragmatically, so we've got a workable solution.
Good. And that's it. Pilots schemes are designed to show the flaws, aren't they? Which is what's important about. Councillor John O'Lee, next, please.
Chairman, thank you. I really hope this works. I really do. However, I realistically don't think it will work, and there's a reason for it. And it's not just I'm saying it off the cuff. I've actually done quite a lot of research about this myself. And what, even in the best case scenario, in 60 years' time, when we are looking at being carbon neutral, we will still be looking in the region of needing between 15% oil and fuel and that sort of aspect. And the reason for it is there's certain things now that we need and use that can't be replaced. Can't be replaced without using it. And one of them in particular, and the one that really interested me, was Lego, believe it or not. Is Lego went away, and they're a massive multi-million-pound company that have gone away and looked at producing Lego in a way they don't have to use oil. But what's really interesting is what they found out is they can do it, however, it uses more energy. It actually uses more energy. So actually, it's worse off than actually using oil subjects. And again, it's the Concorde question, isn't it? We found this great thing that can go and do great things, but actually, it's not cost effective. It's not cost beneficial. And in the long run, we actually went backwards when it came to technology. And the reason why I'm mentioning all these things now is there's lots of issues that are now coming up as part of this trial and as part of other trials across the country that are really looking like it's not going to be realistic. And the reason why I say that is there was a documentary on the BBC, I believe it's BBC, only a few weeks ago, where there's a taxi driver who has an electric car that cannot charge his car in London because there's nowhere for him to
Councillor Lee, are you coming to a question?
No, there is.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
But the reason why, please just bear with me, is the reason why I'm saying all this is the amount of money that is being spent by national government and by us for all these trials is I've got residents in Fernwood. They're not able to park on the roadside because there's no roadside parking. The car parking that they've been given nobody uses because it's not outside their property. I've got townhouses in Newark where it's not feasible for them to park on the streets. Again, there's public car parking that is more expensive for them to use. Because the truth of the matter is this is all going to come down to money. It's all going to come down to cost. Can a resident, can somebody like me and Mike charge cheaper from our houses than using the roadside parking, than using a car parking? Yes. And it will all come down to, in the end, of Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Mr. and Mrs. A. Smith all fighting over the car parking outside their property because it's cheaper for them to use their own electricity and car park than it is for them to use the county council or the national facilities. And the question is are we price matching what people can do for themselves than using our facilities? Because at the end of the day it'll all come down to cost. It'll all come down to cost. And that is the question, is how much do we charge for people using our facilities and charging in comparison to what they can use themselves?
If you could, expand on the way the charging works. My understanding is that it comes from the people's properties anyway, but we just enable the cable to be fed under the pavement so it can get to the actual car. Is that as you understand it?
Yeah, well, there are two aspects to this. The bit, I mean, we don't match. There's no matching of costing at all because the pilot scheme relates to the cable channels on the pavement. It doesn't relate to us charging for the charging because the council isn't involved in the actual charging of the vehicle. We're involved in the providing the facility of the installation of the cable channels. Therefore, charge rate, the cost of charging is completely different.
And so, in terms of the project rollout, that's the wider, obviously the point in the actual. There's two parts to this, like you rightly pointed out earlier, the pilot side and the investment side from central government. In terms of the locations about where these are going to be, I understand some are outside properties, some are in places like LEVIs, for example. So, I'm guessing that's the angle that Councillor is coming from. How do we go about the price, and who's actually going to be facilitating these charging networks in terms of organisation, power company, whatever? Thank you.
So, James.
Thank you for that question. It's a really good one. So in terms of how the other project will go forward, is the charge point operator who we would procure to deliver this for us. They install the charge points. They look after their maintenance, and we get a very small income from the installation of those. And they set the charging rates. They're also responsible, because I guess this is a question that people might be interested in going forward, as technology changes and things move on. That procurement contract runs for between 7 and 15 years. Things will very much change in this world, and they will be responsible for the maintenance of those assets and also for the removal of those assets if we so wished. And that will be part of our procurement ask, is that if we decide as a county council this is no longer for us, they will take out those installations later on.
Very quickly, if you wouldn't mind, John, I've got quite a few to get through. Thank you.
That's fine. So again, we all know, and I actually smile because we all know you don't have the legal right to park outside your own property. So the question again is you can do all this, you can pay for it, but the truth of the matter is as communities grow and housing people grow, and on average in my communities there's 2.5 houses per household. So everybody's fighting over parking outside their houses. The truth of the matter is you can spend all this money and never be able to park outside your own house and charge a car. So either are we changing policy that means we will start allocating people where they've paid for this project that only they can park outside their property, because that needs to be a change of policy. And if so, that's a massive change of policy. Or are we saying that they're going to be county council run sites that anybody can use them no matter where you park on the highway?
Mr. Woods, thank you.
Yeah, these are all extremely well-made points and extremely difficult situations to resolve. I think it will depend on each individual road as to where we put the charging facilities. If there's spaces on roads that aren't directly outside people's houses, we do have the opportunity to introduce traffic regulation orders. I'm not suggesting that's something we're going to do because that's not yet been discussed with Councillor Clark. But there's a range of options, but the difficulties you've identified are correct. The challenge is to get through those difficulties and come up with a workable solution. Some authorities have put them in and left it to local residents to negotiate amongst themselves, and other authorities have tried a different tact where they've put specific parking in for specific residents. But I do take your point. If a house or a terraced household got 2 or 3 cars, then it does make things extremely difficult.
Thank you for that. Great answer as well. Great questions. Thanks, Councillor Lee. Councillor Tom Holt.
Thank you, Chair. I think my point kind of rolls straight on from Councillor Lee's, actually, and really directly asks about the trial and the process that we're actually talking about as well. So obviously we were contacted as members in August for a list of preferred areas that would benefit from the help with the electric car infrastructure. I carried out my own consultation, for example, in Carswick, Huthwaite and Sutton Ashfield, and this was something that residents wanted, especially those in terraced streets appreciated this call. Since we put our recommended list in, we haven't heard anything. That's 4 months. All 15 Independent Alliance councillors spent time consulting with their communities. I'd like to ask how many other councillors responded, and when will we be receiving feedback of this and on the next steps. I'd also like to ask a couple of other questions. What discussions are we having with private companies to run these schemes? As the money we've been given so far is pie in the sky compared to what we need. Is there a plan to involve private companies and work together to increase the opportunity to improve electric car infrastructure? And then the final point, which kind of all wraps in, is, and I think Councillor Lee would hopefully like this question as well, is there a more cost-effective way of doing this? I know the Mayor of London, the Chairman was speaking about this earlier, the Mayor of London have done something with lampposts where they've allowed the private companies to tap into their feed and then they access it with a QR code on the app. Would that not be a way that people on terrace streets, maybe no need to fight over parking because every lamppost may have it, is it possible to introduce that as well as this scheme to complement each other? And would there be an effort where potentially the County Council could bulk buy this electric and sell it at a similar cost to what we pay for it, like the Mayor of London does in London?
I'm being directed to Sue Jakes, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollis. I'll try and go through all the points. I was writing them down. I hope I've picked them all up. So if we start with site selection, so we started at 4,500 sites county-wide looking at. We then asked districts, parishes and members, and we had an excellent response from members across the county in terms of site selection. So when we had all the data in, we then start to look at what's possible and what's not, and that kind of narrowed it down to 2,200. So I know that in Ashfield we're looking at 409 sites currently, and we're looking at some further investigation there. When we hear about the funding, and that £5.5 million that we've bid for, that's the last part of Q4, we're told we'll know about that. We can then start to do some more work on finalising those sites. It will be a bit remiss to start finalising sites down when we don't actually have the government funding in place, but we are proactively looking at sites and evaluating those sites to see if they're actually viable to go ahead. We will also then be consulting with districts, parishes, members and local residents to see what the appetite is for moving some of those forward. So we've got a long way to go. It's not a quick fix. It's a 4 to 5 year funded programme, so it's going to take a while. In terms of procurement, the Nottinghamshire County Council is running the procurement exercise for all 12 authorities in the consortium, and that will go out to the open market for private sector charge point operators to bid into, and that will be a process that's run, and a contract will be allocated accordingly along our procurement and tender framework. I'm just trying to think what it was mentioning. It's given permission to put their kit on the highway. That's what. Yeah. The specific tech will be charge point operator led. They will work with VIA. They will work with other operators to make sure that that's installed correctly and it's the right type of kit for the location. So there's several types of kit that can go in. Lamppost charging is something that in past pilots has been looked at, but there seem to be an awful lot of difficulties with the amount of stuff that actually runs through a lighting column currently, and the ask to use that again might be too much, and it's something that we'll have to look at individual sites. But there'll be a range of options because there's no one fit solution. And when you look at the diversity of the county, we'll need a range of options from those operators to facilitate the implementation.
And so as a result of that, the door's still open for information from residents to pass to their local representatives and suggest
absolutely
tech that's around, and maybe say, well, this could be something feasible, get that through that feedback loop so that you've got that as you go forward. I'm sure you've obviously got a handle on it anyway, but in terms of just passing that information forward too.
Yeah, as you perhaps remember, we've just put out our framework to consultation. It went out this week and we're starting to get responses to that, so that's excellent. But it's really, really early days, so there'll be lots of engagement, lots of drop-in sessions, lots of consultation, and it's certainly something that we'd ask all members to be involved in as we move forward. But we've got 4 to 5 years to get this programme completed.
Okay, thank you very much. Move on to Councillor Anne Callaghan, please.
Thank you. Just relating to household electricity is obviously a lot cheaper than municipal car parks. So if you've got off-street parking, it will be more expensive. So obviously we've got to bear in mind, you know, the cost to lots of individuals that can't have those charging points at their houses. They've got to pay more expense for it. But my question is, page 22.26, via EM are currently in the process of developing a marketing plan. When can we expect this plan, or is it still a work in progress? You know, what's your time frame?
Mr. Wood? Wonderful.
Yeah, I think the marketing plan that's being talked about there is in relation to the cable channels, because we had a challenge back before that it wasn't well known. So we have actually done quite a lot of work in making it more widely known to residents. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to remove that requirement for residents to have the liability once the cable channel is installed. So we'll revisit that, and we have got a marketing plan. So you know, we can share that with members if members want to see it.
Wonderful. Councillor Carrick, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Sue, for responding to all these questions. They're very important stuff. You've kind of stolen the thunder, because I think the key things here are supporting this project, this test, if you like, market testing of the whole thing. I think we should welcome it. Certainly, it is part of that longer term strategy, moving over to a greener world and everything else. But I think the most important thing was the last thing, the sentences before we're actually the consultation that the County Council putting out on EV charging forward framework. I think very important to pass a link for that consultation so members can broadcast that out through their various social media, etc., and get residents to partake. So that's the most important thing. The stuff that's been said here today in this chamber, actually our residents are able to say that kind of thing and influence the project and the structure going forward. So they do have a chance to be involved in how we develop these things in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Want to come back to that?
Yeah, it's a really good point. We'll send the link out to members after this session.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Councillor John Wilmot, please. Thank you.
Hey, just a question. I mean, this is the first time I've seen this, because I'm not normally on this committee. Terrace housing, it would be nice to see to allow some of the people in terrace housing a point. But would that mean, because in many of the terraced housing, you can't get in front of your own house, and will never be able to get into your point? Would that mean that that street would have to have a residence parking scheme in you know, to be able to get to the point? So it's a really big problem. And don't forget, all over Nottinghamshire, we have got thousands of terrace properties, thousands and thousands of terrace properties, which many of them see as having a nice car better than having a really posh home. They'd sooner have a posh car. And of course, many of them will want a point to you know, get the electricity into the car. So my question is, how are we going to provide that place for that person when at the moment the terraced housing situation is vulnerable, because people can't get even parked in front of their own homes?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, spot on. I mean, I think it's just, like you said already, I think that there's lots, we're going to find different solutions for different areas, and I don't know if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, I think the other thing, notwithstanding, you know, the fact that we mentioned that some authorities have left it to residents to determine themselves, and some have intervened and put spaces in and traffic regulation orders. This, I think, overall, this is part of the equation. So, and notwithstanding your point about cost, some people might choose to charge the vehicles at work, or they might choose to charge them in different ways. So it's you know, it's early days with this in terms of how we design it on a street by street basis, and it might not be one size fits all, but it is certainly an issue, and it's a very similar issue to the one that Councillor Lee raised. Yeah.
And thank you very much for that, Councillor Wood. Thanks for your response, Mr. Wood. Councillor Butler.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's just been said, actually. We have to remember it is very early days in what is a long process, and I have to say as well that that given the huge cost of new electric cars, plus the fact that I'm reading various reports and things, people who have gotten them are maybe not as satisfied with them as they thought they would be, not just because of charging challenges, plus the fact that we know that the ban of sale of oil and diesel and petrol cars has been relieved or been extended. I suspect we might be talking about this for many years to come, and I think we might be getting a little bit worked up to a certain extent as to the current situation. But the point about the parking outside terrace houses is absolutely spot on. I think that would need, well, it's been said anyway, but sort of probably national road traffic legislation to bring in some sort of legislation to allow people to guarantee a space outside houses. So I think it's all very interesting, but I think there's a long way to go before we know exactly how it's all going to work. But it is quite fascinating. But I think we've also got to bring a sense of realism on timing and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I just think as well. I think what is, you know, as being in this county council, being the council that are going to be pushing this out, I think it's incredibly exciting, and it's an accolade that, you know, I think we should be proud of, and I'm looking forward to how we develop it, because like Councillor Butler and many others have said, the challenges around specific locations and all the different connotations of that and different places where people live. It might be in the rural area. I mean, we're talking about. But obviously, we've got to have the right amount of power. This is the other problem as well. You've got to have the right sort of ability to transfer the power to the vehicle too. So lots of different challenges coming up. I'm sure that the flood team, who are the innovation team, also showing our ability to ensure that Notts residents are getting the best bang for their buck. And incredibly excited to see what comes from this moving forward. So thank you for your time, appreciate the reports, and thanks for all your comments. I'm going to hand over to Martin for recommendations. Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple. Firstly, the report we noted. Secondly, that further information on the marketing activity to promote the EV cable channel charge project be circulated to members of the committee. And then that further report on the delivery of the highway electric vehicle charging infrastructure programme be brought to a future meeting of the committee at a date to be agreed by the Chair and Vice Chair.
Yeah, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. And just particularly, I want to thank Sue for work on this, because she's great. I think we've all bombarded you with too much information from flood into this, but this is great. But just if we could just formally note in the recommendations that Sue and the team get back to each councillor with recommendation on the recommendations they put forward, and at least give them some feedback, and possibly you may want to extend that to anybody that's responsible, particularly the members, should at least receive feedback on the sites that they put forward.
Yeah, we'll get that added to the recommendations straight off the bat. Yeah. Okay, everybody happy with that? Wonderful. So we'll, if we could have, which one? I apologise. I've still got my trading wheels on, so I'll no doubt have a better hang of this as we get nearer the time. But yeah, so we'll propose those recommendations, and if I can have a seconder, thank you, Councillor Hollis. And if we can vote on them, please, everybody. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for attendance, everybody. Thank you. Just let everybody shuffle out the room for a second before we move on to Councillor Carlton. Okay, so we'll move on to, thank you for your patience, we'll move on to agenda item 7, which is Culture, Learning and Libraries Inspire Development Plan 24-25. And if I hand over to Councillor Scott Carlton, who is the Cabinet Member for Communities and Public Health, to present the report.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And this afternoon I have pleasure, committee, and to present to you as has been already alluded to, the development plan for the cultural learning libraries service provided to us by our partners in Inspire, the development plan for 24-25 as outlined in Appendix A. As you can see, our library service continues to trailblaze, and I'm sure we can all agree that we're all rightly proud of the service that Inspire provides to our residents right across the county. It is a shame that Councillor Cossey has just briefly left the chamber, so I was just going to take this moment to place on official record my sincere gratitude to him for his steadfast commitment to our library network, including our mobile provision. I'm very acutely aware I have big shoes to fill. On that point, I am going to pause, Chairman. I welcome Peter Gore, CEO of Inspire, to committee this morning, and at this point, with your permission, I'm going to hand over to Peter, who will provide a short presentation. Thank you.
So good morning. Just to give some context, a short presentation, and happy to take any questions.
Okay, well, I am delighted that we have local events here, and I can just walk to the venue. And how brilliant that the library's being used in the evening as well as during the day. So it's really, really important. And I love it that we have such a good variety of stuff. So not only music, but, drama and poetry and, the whole gamut of different things that the library can offer.
I brought my grandchildren to this show for the first time. It's in our local library, which is exceptional, brilliant, walking distance. And I thought the show was very inspiring. It was well thought of. Excellent.
I thought it was outstanding, so creative. I think it's amazing. I think the Inspire setup is incredible, and now it's opened up again. I think it's wonderful to get out and mix again and learn all these new things and see these new things.
I came to the library to find information about my grandfather, who's on the local war memorial. The library helped me to find his details, and they even printed them out for me. I would never have found it without the help of the library staff and the local studies resources. And it's really made my day to see his picture because I've never actually seen it before.
It's so nice to reacquaint with so many old friends and to reminisce over days gone by and topics of mutual interest.
Great to see a number of children showing such enthusiasm to learn about their town in times gone by.
Fun, lively, exciting, enlightening.
I loved it. It was really engaging for my child.
Absolutely incredible. It was brilliant. It was the scenery was breathtaking, and it was nice to see St Mary's in kind of different spotlights like that. It was, we really enjoyed it, both of us.
It was absolutely amazing.
It was really fun and interesting.
Eerie and awesome. It was totally unexpected and takes you beyond your concept, your perceptions. I liked it. I really enjoyed that. It's like, whoop, one of those moments.
It was sick.
It was really, really sick and amazing to watch.
I found it very fascinating, brilliant, I'll be thinking about it for days.
I thought it was really inspiring to see the young people's voices.
It's amazing and it was fantastic. I love the way they portrayed the horror of war and the decisions and how it affects people's lives.
We've looked at documents from the museum and it's just been amazing to be trusted with such an important and heavy
100%.
topic
100%,
that we portrayed, and we really feel like we did it some justice. It is amazing. It's one of my first times being able to go up on stage and express how Christmas is an inspiration for all and how it makes people happy and get to know each other.
The Inspire tutors have been coming to our school every Wednesday, and they've really helped us to sing what we're going to be singing today, and it's been really good.
It's an amazing place to go. The feeling on the stage is incredible and something very special.
Yeah, it's really helped me to figure things out. I've
learned a lot about where I want to go to, and I'm in a different place to where I want to go to thanks to the course. So it's been a really huge help, and I've learned and I'm learning a lot. So, and also it's really inspiring course thanks to the way it's taught. So yeah, it's really good.
I've really enjoyed my year with Inspire Learning because it was really flexible and allowed me to work from home. Without it, I don't think I'd have been able to gain the qualifications that I have now to be able to go on to university and become an occupational therapist. So thank you, Inspire Learning.
For me, it's been just like an escalation of, it opened my mind a lot, and I had the chance to understand my son now better. It likes to have better connection. So it's really an opener for me.
What I think I got out of doing the volunteering level 1 course was it gave me a bit more confidence to show I have the ability to do things within my job role, and then maybe to pass it on to other people who I work with and share the knowledge I've learned about various aspects.
I've learnt something new today.
I can't believe I've passed. I couldn't have done it without such great support from my tutor.
They also trust us with being independent, and they mold us into this like better version of ourselves. Yeah, they help us get through the things we need to do. They guide us with the things we need to be better on. They will give you the confidence boost that you need, and they will guide you through it all.
Yeah, we're really grateful for Inspire Youth Arts, for so many things, giving us so many opportunities in such a positive environment where we can be ourselves and work with other people. So it's been incredible.
It's a nice place to get a break, have a chat. You can even get a cup of coffee. And the best bit, browsing the shelves for new books. Even going through cancer. They've taken some of the stress off by the staff helping me by, again, allowing me to have books delivered if need be. Even just allowing me to come in and sit down for 10 minutes so I don't have to rush off. And they're not pushing me out the door. I'm welcomed, and I feel welcomed.
Me and my daughter, I think we were there 2-3 times a week. We ended up, she completed the reading challenge within the first week. Every day it was like, oh, can I go to the library? Can I go to the library? It was just really interesting. It got us into the library, and we absolutely loved being there anyway. So it was great to tie that in with some different activities that my daughter enjoyed.
The book deliveries from the Educational Library Service are working an absolute treat. We are already seeing a huge impact on the children's book knowledge, and the school's reading for pleasure ethos is really taking off.
It was simply wonderful to see my efforts among such a wonderful display, a wall of kindness and love. It's great to think they will go off to new homes after.
It's been amazing to work with families, inspiring parents to get creative with their little ones at home and to give them some ideas to do so. But most of all, it's been brilliant to have a chance to play, to actually get down on the floor with lots of different children, with lots of different learning styles, and to let their imaginations lead the way.
Well, I think it was really inspiring to see all of these great projects come together and see the finished result.
I thought it was incredibly captivating. I've never seen such high quality of work. It was incredible.
It was really, really inspiring. It was really great to see the young people and the diversity of people.
And it's really inspired me to
try and push my children along a little bit further to say, get involved more, don't stop, keep going, and I hope everybody else feels the same.
The teachers are so good. They've always been there for us.
Library staff are very helpful. They look after us.
Honestly, she is really, really good, and she's always there to help.
The staff are really brilliant. They will support you in all the things that you need. They will be there for you. But Inspire, you get the support that you really need, that you struggle with, but it's really good to come Inspire.
How did it feel to win on the night? Well, it was absolutely amazing. I mean, I got up there, we'd been sat for just over 2 hours, and I got up there, and when my name was called out, I just felt an immense sense of pride that everything that I'd done had come together to this one point, and I was being recognised at such a platform. And to walk off stage with that trophy is still in my trophy cabinet. No one touches it. It's one of those things that will mean a lot to me for years to come.
It's helped me a lot to cope again, especially with my disability, and I love working here, and I've got lots of regulars who've supported me, and they appreciate me being here, and that means a lot as well. I felt a bit useless after I got this disability, and I had to accept I was partially disabled. But now it's given me a new lease of life, given me a lot more confidence to talk to people and go out. It's helped me mentally to cope more and enjoy life more. I'm getting on in years, what you've probably noticed, and I don't feel useless anymore at all.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Just to echo what Councillor Carlton said previously about who has rejoined us, Councillor Cotty, he thanked your dedication for all the work you do on libraries, and you didn't hear that, so I just wanted to ensure that you did. But thank you for the report, thank you for the video, I should say, and I can also confirm that the reading challenge is incredibly popular in my house. And my daughter has been completely, taken over by the challenge, trying to get it done, and she did it. She read so many books in such a short space of time. So again, these things do work, and I think as well the investment that's gone into the libraries, some of the things in terms of the facilities, just to have a cup of coffee in there and things like that, which I think weren't there before in some of the local libraries, and that investment that's gone in, I think, is really paying dividends so far. But obviously I want to hand it over to the committee to ask questions, so I'll open the floor to debate, and we'll kick off with Councillor Anne Callaghan, please.
Oh, thank you. Well, this actually isn't a question, but I'd just like to say to Inspire Libraries and John Cotty as well, we are certainly getting bang for our bung here. Just paraphrasing your phrase there, Councillor Adams. It's a fabulous service, and I use it, my family use it, and I think I've never come across anybody that's had a bad thing to say about our Inspire, whatever they go in there for to learn. So I'd like to think that could be said about a lot of things that Notts County Council do. And also, the bit on page 27 where they get good or very good target of 90% with performance specification, and I think that says quite a lot about that service. But my question is, what would the impact be on your services if you were required to make further savings, Peter?
Could you?
Oh, sorry, Scott.
No, thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Just turning to your opening remarks, I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, well, you can't fault me, can you?
No, absolutely.
Absolutely. Red, blue or green, we're on the same page.
Maybe that be the spirit of this morning, continuing forward. It is absolutely no secret across the whole network of local government at this moment in time. You've heard members from all political persuasions making that very valid argument around public debate of the funding of local authorities at any tier. We're not going to shy away from that. However, I'll go back and bring Councillor Cotty into the points that he made in the previous full council budget debate around this administration's ongoing commitment to our library network. As you've seen from the presentation this morning, it's not just simply books on shelves, it's a lot more than that. And certainly within the creation of this new portfolio with communities and public health, I think there's some further opportunities there, particularly around the public health agenda. You'll note from the report on page 27 the current partnership that we have with ABL Health, a commission provider from the county council. Again, it's been absolutely fundamentally clear to me, and I'll be making a speech this afternoon on this Public Health Away Day, that we've had the coronavirus pandemic, which has eroded resilience away from our communities. Quickly succeeded by that is the pressures of the cost of living, which again, in my view, is eroded public resilience across the entirety of our county. So in short, I'm going to sit here today and say that this council, this administration will have that commitment to our libraries moving forward, and uphold the previous points made by Councillor Cotty and elsewhere. But I will also be equally clear to committee this morning that we also have to innovate. Where opportunities that are presented to us, and I refer to a recent announcement in Ollerton with Levelling Up money, the creation of a community hub and the opportunity to co-locate services. So let me be absolutely unequivocally clear this morning, we are not closing libraries. But if the opportunity provides ourselves, and obviously I note in the report again the investments going into Kirkby, providing new services there, if that opportunity to co-locate and provide even something better to take what we've currently got as an excellent service to an outstanding and superb service, then I'm all for it.
Thank you. That answers your question. On to Councillor Penny Gowan, please.
Thank you. I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Callahan said. I mean, the libraries are wonderful, a calm, peaceful place you can go and learn and everything else. The only question I had really, looking at, and it's not a criticism in any sense, under point 8, I heard this morning how the libraries help people into employment, but I think the biggest way to help people into employment probably is with providing space to study and computing facilities for some. And I just wondered, have you got any financial challenges with maintaining computing resources or indeed space to study? Because I know it often fills up, and I think it's one of those probably longest piece of string problems.
Councillor,
if it's okay, Chairman, I'll hand to Peter.
So in terms of the IT infrastructure, the County Council's invested in the last 18 months to replace our whole network and the public use PCs, so that's pretty good. In terms of support for individuals and business, and obviously the Live Inspire includes our adult learning and skills service. We've just appointed a business skills and advisor post, and she's going to work across libraries and learning as part of the British Library sponsored business innovation network to support new business and to grow new business. And we work with County Council economic growth officers as well. So yeah, we really see it as an important role that we can help. The BIPC programme, the first phase came to an end last year, and between ourselves and city libraries, we outperformed any other area in terms of number of new companies supported and companies that were able to grow. So we're quite keen that our Inspire model allows that support for both individuals and small business.
Wonderful, thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chairman. So I just first I suppose Councillor can't welcome to the role. I know certainly from my perspective, I can see the County Council moving towards a more youthful cabinet member process. So it's good to see you here. But I really want to pick up on something Councillor Cotty said in the council meeting in 2022. Councillor Cotty gave the guarantee, and I quote, "Every library would be safe from closure whilst I am the cabinet member for communities." Will the new portfolio give the same reassurance to us this morning, so that libraries, including the one in Huthwaite, are safe from closure?
Thank you, Councillor Hollis. I thank you for your warm welcome to your committee here this morning, this afternoon as well. In the terms of the crux to the answer of your question, I refer you back to the answer I gave to Councillor Callaghan. I alluded to in my opening remarks, I have huge shoes to fill, absolutely. Do I sit here and continue to uphold those words spoken previously on behalf of the administration? Absolutely. But let me be absolutely clear as well, where those opportunities do come to co-locate, to enhance, to go even further with the service, it speaks for itself what Inspire offer to our communities. And I repeat the words around sort of the effects of the pandemic, the cost of living pressures, to that more public health approach to actually build resilience back into our communities. So actually our residents right across the county is not necessarily determined by postcode. I've heard colleagues sitting previously on health and wellbeing board make passionate speeches about health inequalities that persist. From a public health point of view, I see our library network as one of those key vehicles to deliver that, to actually get to the heart of where our communities are and where they actually need the most support. So in answer to your question, I am not closing libraries.
Thanks for that. I think we can take that as a definite. Sorry, Tom's hiding my list now. Thanks, Tom. Councillor John O'Lee, please. Thank you.
Chairman, thank you very much. Obviously, we're all aware in the press that a 114 notice due to £23 million worth of budget deficit was announced by the City Council, and we're also aware that Nottingham City Council have also stated that they will be looking at a review on their libraries, job cuts, closure of care homes, and many other cuts. Are we expecting a draw on our services, especially with neighbouring where we butt up against them, that we will get more people from the city using our services? Are we expecting this? What are we doing about this? Because obviously there's going to be lots and lots of people that won't have services in the city if these closure happens, and they will be using our services. Are we expecting it, and what we're going to do if they do?
Thank you, Councillor Lee, for your question, and I'll answer briefly before I hand over to Peter. As a keen shopper in Nottingham City myself, I've used their libraries. Political, geographical, council boundaries don't necessarily respect where people have those habits. So, I'm not necessarily going to sit here this morning and provide a sort of a running commentary on the situation that Nottingham City Council have arrived at. But certainly to repeat any concerns around the future and longevity of the service, I think I've made that absolutely crystal clear this morning. But certainly where opportunities do present and arrive, I think we should be taken. But Peter, if you want to provide a commentary to that.
So in terms of our relationship with city libraries, between the county libraries and city libraries, we do share a computer system, and we do interoperate across the boundary, as it were, in terms of customers borrowing and returning. So at the moment that arrangement works really well. Obviously we'll have discussions with city colleagues about the impact that may have in terms of exchange of stock and purchase of new stock. So I don't have clarity on what that will mean at the moment. In terms of our learning services, Department for Education funding means that we can't offer that learning programme to city residents. It's for county residents. And it's just worth noting, of course, we also provide services to the city in terms of our archive service under a partnership agreement between the county and the city, and our education library service does serve city schools, but that's a cost recovery service.
Please say.
Just to confirm, at the moment in time, there's obviously cross services. We can use their service and they can use ours. If they do cut their service, and let's say they're only doing a review at the moment, we don't know that they are, would that mean that in the future they wouldn't be able to use our services, or would they be able to sign up and use our services even though they're not paying for them?
So in terms of the library, it's the statutory duty of the library authority, which in the case of the city is the city, and in the case of the county is the county council. They'll have to define what that statutory offer is. I don't know what that will be. From our point of view, not having any books in a library service you won't be fulfilling that statutory obligation. So I don't envisage the time with the city the county have got a conflict in terms of who's got the books. So I'm not speaking for the city. I haven't had those conversations with colleagues yet, but we'll watch that in terms of whether there's any negative impact on the way that we operate.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
We'll go. Thank you. Thank you for those answers as well. Councillor John Wilmot, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I do know that the libraries do a tremendous job and get a lot of people in, but there are other things that need to be spoken about. In Ashfield, we're doing a safer streets initiative, inviting people that feel vulnerable, etc., into the any shop that will participate in activity, so people can go out into the streets, go out into the towns to feel safe. I just wondered if it's been done in your libraries, a safer neighbourhood situation where you invite people who do feel a bit vulnerable, and there's a lot of them, into the library just to feel safe and so forth, and they might get interested in some of the activities and so forth. Yeah, I mean, some of the statistics you put out are very, very good. The other thing is, I used to represent 89 community groups 30 years ago. These community groups, many of them are finished because they haven't got the resources to continue, and wherever they've actually met, they usually charge £8 an hour or £20 an hour, whatever it is. I just wondered if you could put out to introduce some of these groups and say to them, come and join us. You know, we're not here to make money out of you. We want you to come and enjoy yourself and meet. There are knitting groups. There are little bingo places where a dozen elderly ladies have a game of bingo and so forth. It'd be lovely to be able to accommodate them in our places. You know, all these little things. And I also say there's a lot of youngsters at the moment struggling with reading and writing and so forth. And at school, whether it's because of the activities around other children create a problem, I don't know. But it would be nice if to have a few after hours, 3 o'clock, 3:30, when they actually finished at school, to be able to go into a place where they can actually talk to somebody nice and just hopefully to learn, because a lot of them are not learning. You know, they try to, but if there's other children getting onto them because they have got problems, it is a real problem. I just wondered if you could help in that way. As I say, more pensioner programs are absolutely essential. Over the last few weeks, the teenagers in Hucknall, we've had a few problems, and I think we've had a few problems all over the place. Thank goodness that the county council are sending their youth bus out to us now on a Wednesday night, which is but it's one night. I just wondered if you could talk to the youth service and find out what actually happens and why they're getting so many lovely people, youngsters, instead of going out and you know, breaking everything up, they're actually going into the bus and doing some things, and you know, it'd be nice if we get a little program up for children, so they've got something to do. Because the amount of children I see that say to me, and I said to them, why have you broken that chair or whatever, you know, whatever you've done, vandalised, I've got nothing else to do. Let's look at that situation, see if we can help a little bit. It'd be lovely, wouldn't it? You know, and it inspires got people to be able to do that. You know, I do know that because what people tell me. And as I say, I don't know, in our Inspire place in Hucknall, we've got the Tourism and Regeneration Group in there with all the heritage that's available. Has every other place got the same thing? Because it does invite people to visiting places to go in and have a look and see what your town represents, what's your town all about, and so forth. Would be absolutely fabulous if that could happen. And I'm sure all councillors would love to be able to see things like that happening, you know. And it'd be nice to have a little area where you can tell you people who come to visit, this is what the town's all about. This is our tourism. This is our potential of heritage. This is the heritage we've got. It'd be fantastic. I just wondered what you thought about what I've just said.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Wilmot, for your various points. And I'll pick off a couple of them first before I hand to Peter, particularly around your first opening comments around safe streets and vulnerable people, which I wholeheartedly agree with, by the way. The points that you make around heritage, access to services, they are some of the key points that are going through my head right now. So, as a local divisional member that represents Sherwood Forest, like Bucknell, we have a significant amount of heritage. For me, I think there's some opportunities there to innovate, look at the way of working. I'm not saying this as a criticism. I think I've made my views quite clear on the service. But again, sort of financial pressures, etc., the need to innovate, potentially co-locate if we do need to, but also with the public health division that will sit now within the community's portfolio. For me, I'm not necessarily going to sit here and make cast iron guarantees, because I know that's got former prime ministers into trouble. However, what I will say, these are all the points that I'll be asking to be reviewed going forward. Peter.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. My simple answer to all your questions would be yes. I think we're doing all of those across the network. In terms of safer streets, I have a feeling we are linked in with the Ashfield project. I think we're also linked in with a similar scheme in Mansfield. I'll check that and get back to you. The sign, yeah. But we're working hard. We've got agreements with Carers Association. We're working with ABL Health, and we're working with other partners to make sure that libraries are a place of welcome. And that's often delivered in partnership with volunteers. So that's a weekly session or twice a week where people can come for a free cup of tea or coffee, and then they can engage. And some of those groups have grown from 2 or 3 people to 20 or 25, and that's happening right across the network. In terms of young people, we're working with lots of young people through our youth arts, through our college programme, and through our music teaching service. So you will have seen some of that on the screen in terms of giving them opportunities to engage positively with culture. It's also worth picking up that was on the screen around Community Makers, which is our volunteer programme, which we started just as we came out of the pandemic. So from a standing start, we've got last count I think was about 1,000. Just over 1,000 people registered as regular volunteers, and they're doing lots of different things across Inspire, including around the heritage. So there's lots of stuff. In terms of children's reading, the Summer Reading Challenge, the figures you saw on the screen were last year's, the previous year's rather. This year we saw an increase in that by 8% of children taking part, and we've got Bookstart reading intervention for babies and toddlers. So there's quite a lot around that. But our library staff are brilliant in terms of welcoming children into spaces and making sure there's a safe space for children to come, either with their parents or with carers, to access the materials, both computers and book materials. So there's lots of stuff in terms of what you said that we're already involved in. Always happy to do more, but thank you.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And yeah, I can just confirm as well, in Burton Joyce Library near me, they just helped the History Society, who have had that same problem that you discussed, lost their ability to rent a room, all those sorts of things, don't earn any money towards it, so struggle to finance it. And they've accommodated a decent amount of their stuff to encourage that local identity. So I can confirm that personally, that definitely happened. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Much has been said, really. We're all proud of our libraries, and quite rightly so. As Councillor Cotter used to say, and has been alluded to over many years, we've never closed any, and indeed we've opened brand new ones. And even in the last couple of years, the Chairman and I have had the pleasure of going along to opening refurbished libraries. So there's no doubt about it. There is a huge commitment here for libraries, and and quite rightly so. And also, gone are the days now, aren't they, when libraries were hush, don't make a noise. I mean, which is quite right too, and also to provide some reassurance to Councillor Wilmot. I know in my own library in Copgrave, which is brand new build a few years ago. Every fortnight they have on a Friday they have this coffee morning where it was for it's for people who are vulnerable, lonely, and it's fine, but it integrates so well with the day-to-day activities of the library as well. So making the point about not being sort of quiet and hushful. Also, you can still use the libraries very much as we all remember them from many years ago, where you would go along and read, study, and whatever. So all power to them. The only thing I sometimes wonder whether you could always do better, can't you? I suppose, but we're quite rightly talking about the Inspire brand and what a great name that is, because it is inspiring. But at the end of the day, it's also a Nottinghamshire County Council funded service, and sometimes I do wonder whether we ought to shout more about that too, because especially when you do hear of other authorities near and far who are, for various reasons, winding down their library services, and we're plainly not. So I do wonder sometimes whether there's an opportunity just not to be a shy and bang off. No, I mean blow our own trumpet a little bit more. But no, they're great places to be, for all ages as well.
Thank you for that. Councillor Carlton, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just on the point around comms, I absolutely agree with you, Councillor Butler. I think, speaking very much off the cuff, only a few weeks into this new portfolio position, they're some of the strengths of the service that we really need to promote. So when I sort of turned to my comments earlier made around the public health agenda and how we get to those areas of the county that really need our support, and I don't just mean in the terms of the purest form of accessing a library. So, and, it's well documented in other places across the council, the demand on services and pressures. When I've heard many politicians from all colours, not necessarily locally, even internationally, when they're thinking about prevention, early intervention agendas, as I alluded to earlier in a response, we need a vehicle or vehicles to get there. So I see the current Inspire model as one of those vehicles.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. I think everyone's had a chance to speak. So thank you for the debate, and thank you for the kind words as well. A lot of you used about what is an incredibly important service to our county. So that takes us over nicely to recommendation.
So just a couple. Firstly, the report we noted, and then the Chairman's agreed that a further report on the future development and delivery of the cultural, learning and library services be brought to the December 2024 meeting of the Place Select Committee.
Okay, so can I have a second on that, please? Yeah, Councillor Hollis, thank you. And if we can all vote, thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Ogle, were you in for a vote then? Yeah, all unanimous then. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
So yeah, thank you for that, and this brings us to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 8, which is catering, cleaning, and facilities management service future service models, and that's to ask Councillor Scott Carlton, the Cabinet Member for Communities and Public Health, to present the report, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'll keep it brief as I'm conscious of time. However, I bring you again this afternoon a paper in reference to the catering, cleaning and facilities management service and potential future service models. The purpose of the report is to provide an overview of the current service as detailed in Appendix A attached to your report, and the current operating context, which is detailed significantly from paragraphs 4 onwards. You have noted in the report itself, amongst the recommendations, the proposal to form a task and finish group to explore more in depth around the current pressures on the service and offer out that potential for subsequent recommendations by yourselves. The report, I believe, is quite open and transparent, and in the era following sort of highway reviews, etc. I come to you this morning to ask you to consider the task and finish group. As I said in the report, that the financial pressures, not just necessarily in year, but in previous years, speak for themselves. And again, following on from the debate on the previous agenda item, I think we're only all too aware of the current financial position facing many local authorities. Clearly, external forces such as rising inflation rates, as well as wages, have also added further pressures to this service. So on that point, Chairman, I am going to pause and hand back to you.
Thank you. Mark Walker, do you wish to comment at this point, or just to wait for questions? Okay, so I'm going to move the recommendation straight off the bat because we have them as detailed in the report. And ask for a seconder, please. Oh, Anne Callaghan, thank you, Anne. Okay, so we'll move on to open up for the debate, please. Councillor Lee.
Chairman, thank you. I'd like to start with a compliment. As I said at the beginning, my children use the catering services, and they always come back saying how much they enjoy the food. I think only one meal in a few months they'll complain, and that's usually the fish on a Friday. But apart from that, they love the food. The reason I'm asking, it's in the same line as the last question. We obviously know that our neighbouring council are struggling, and they're looking at saving money and cutting services. Where we have neighbouring facilities, example here, where we cook lots and lots and lots of school meals, is there any dialogue with the county about maybe providing them with services? One, it will obviously bring in more funding for us as a council, and it may be cheaper for us to do it than them do it, especially if when they're looking at making so many of their own staff redundant. Are we having conversations about sharing services or maybe supplying services to them?
Thank you, Councillor. This is where I am going to deploy a very quick dodge, not to dodge your question, but you will be appreciated. I've only been in post a few weeks, so I'll hand over to Mark Walker to answer that question.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question. Yeah, when we're talking about within the county council, a large complex service, £36 million turnover, you can see that we're within the county council area that we're currently looking at a deficit of £2.5 million this year, and it's likely to increase. We are having all sorts of conversations and continually, as we do with all service, review what we're doing to make it as efficient as possible. We're open to conversations, obviously, around that, but the purpose for seeking a task and finish group is to spend some time with members across all parties in order to explore all those type of issues in a task and finish group, because say nearly 1,900 members of staff in this service, 36 million turnover. You'll see from the attachment there's lots and lots of different parts of this service. So I think it would be most useful to sort of pick up those questions in a task and finish group if that's what the committee would like to do.
I completely agree. I just think since this was probably written, lots of things have changed, and I think the conversation with the City Council has changed. Something probably you were aware of when this report was being written. I'm just stating that I know we have a great service, right? We have a great service. The kids love it. However, there might be a wider conversation to have with the task and finish group to see if we could look at supplying services to our neighbours. And that's a conversation I don't need to say now, but just that expansion.
Yeah, and absolutely. Everything is to be looked at, if you like, in order to help understand, look at the future, and decide what the future for the county council services and how to, given what the outlook for public sector finance is, how do we balance the books going forward? But yeah, that could be looked at.
Councillor Tom Hollis, please.
Thank you. Yeah, obviously picking up from paragraph 10, it talks about what school catering the team's responsible for. Mark will be aware during our calling process linked to the 15% rise in school dinner charges, which are implemented in the new year. We argued simply that school catering probably is in the wrong county council department. And we appreciate that there's been a long function of the catering team, but we argued that the responsibility for school meals should be in the children's schools and families department. The evidence between nutrition and educational benefits of food is obviously long documented. So as part of the review and the task and finish group, I'll certainly be bringing this up in that. But then that's from more of a public point of view. But I think if it's okay, particularly with Derek and Mark, and I'm sure people like John Hughes and things are listening as well, I've always been very disappointed with our NCC attitude to the staff in the catering department. You know, we'll all recall getting the email from Anthony May at the time saying that members, staff and everybody shouldn't come into the department. The one department that didn't get that was the catering team. They were the people that made sure school lunches went out to everybody with free meals. They're the ones that still attended this building along with the maintenance team. And I'm upset to see that certainly over 50% of the ladies and gentlemen that worked in this building have now left us due to the threat, and I think it was a real kick in the teeth to the staff that put in a lot of work. So I think certainly, again, as part of this review, I'll be raising it from a staff point of view, as well as a public facing, and maybe the lessons that we could have learned during that time and how it affects us going forward with our attitude fundamentally to the workforce, which, you know, I think the report, it only refers to the cost of them while not potentially seeing the value socially they provide to us. And I think the final point I'll raise on that is, you know, there's no getting around the fact that catering probably plays an important role in decision making in this building, and I think relations between political groups and maybe even officers are certainly poorly affected by the fact that we don't have any sort of shared catering services. Me and the chairman were talking about this during the pre-meet. If you don't want a dry sandwich from the shop, you've got a lot of effort to get food now in this part of the building and others. And I think the time that wastes of our staff, but also the camaraderie and the fact that you can maybe discuss work stuff is lost. So I see all that as part of this review, and I'll certainly be making sure that gets raised. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. And just come back and say the sausage rolls are phenomenal. You know, I can't completely agree with you on the dry food point, I'll be honest, and the coffee is pretty good and the sandwiches not. But, you know, I do take your point. I do take your point about that shared area. I think that's a valid one. Please, Councillor Cole.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Councillor Hollis, for your comments and observations. Whilst without sort of drilling down too far into each individual one, I think this is one of the purposes of why I brought this report here this morning. As I've alluded to already, it's quite an open, honest and transparent report that officers and sort of my predecessor and even to myself, we've not hidden the fact of the pressures on the existing service as it is, and it is a very complex piece within our traded services. As you've alluded to already, and as Mark has referenced already, nearly 2,000 members of staff. When you think about the size of the organisation as we are in our entirety, that's 7,000 people. So it's a significant part of our workforce. Absolutely, I sit here as a portfolio holder and value every single one of those, whether it's in the landscape management, over into the school meals, those to providing meals on wheels. But this again goes to add to that complexity. So this is why this report is in front of you this morning, to really have that sort of open and frank conversation cross-party within the task and finish process. And also, as you'll note within the recommendations, that the scope of that would be determined by yourself, Chairman, and Vice Chairman as well.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely bang on. I think that's why we've got to cover all of this, all the different complexities of it in the form that we're talking about is the way to do it, because you know we all know we don't have the meeting time to deliver that in this session, so that makes complete sense to me. So thank you for that. Has anybody else got anything else to add for Councillor Gold?
Just really quickly, I mean, I think this sounds like a big opportunity for the council. It's very scary, the first suggestion of the areas to be explored. I feel it needs ambition to grow the service, not cut it. So yeah, totally agree with the working party.
Councillor Wilmot, thank you. Councillor Gunn.
Just to say that I know it's £2.5 million, a lot of money, and but the main thing is that we've got to continue with making sure that the children have a balanced diet and good quality food, because it's the start of life. Because once you start not eating correctly and so forth, your whole life changes, and you become suddenly a different person, which we don't want. We want people to be happy, lively, constructive, good homes, good jobs, and so forth. And it all starts at school. So we can't really do away with trying to cut the price of a meal and this, that, and the other. You just can't do it. It would cause havoc for the county on the whole. Facilities, of course, primary schools, secondary schools, and bus stations are very, very. It's essential that we put enough money into them to make sure that everything is correct. The facilities in the schools, and of course, our bus services at the moment are being curtailed, many of them, but fortunately we've come up with some more money. I realise that, but we must have service stations so people can get onto the bus correctly, not get wet through waiting for buses and don't come and so forth. It's all into trying.
Taking you on to read the same report I am, Councillor Wilmot, in reference to shelters for bus stations.
Bus stations. It's on with the facilities management.
Pull your leg.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm just looking at this for the first time. I'm making mistakes on it, but all I'm much of this is to do with children and with schools and this, that, the other. If people get the correct things happening at school, that's the education, the food, and everything else is all interchanges with everybody. And it's absolutely essential that we don't cut that service. And so what we need to be doing is asking the government for more money. That's the situation, because it's all about early intervention. You do the right things at an early stage, and you benefit from it in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate that. Just to add anything to the debate? No? Okay, wonderful. So the recommendation's already been forwarded and seconded. So it's just a case of voting on the recommendation now to move ahead to the working group. If I could have show of hands, please. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you. The final agenda item is the work programme. This item will be introduced by Martin Elliott. That's it. Please introduce it.
Yeah, just a few changes to it. So obviously, I mentioned from the council motion, there's the activity that's been put on there regarding flooding and the gullies. Just an update: we've carried out the review of the HWRCs, which was really interesting. So the report is being drafted up, and that will be coming to committee in March. For those on the group, I will be sending out the because the review group met to talk about the recommendations. I'm just getting those words up, so they'll be coming around for comment soon. And the observant, if you may have noticed that the climate change and the net zero framework is now no longer on the place work programme. That's because it's now going to go over to overview committee, just because of the whole council kind of like strategic nature of it. The chair of place and the chair of overview felt it would sit better with overview. Because of their strategic kind of look at what's happening.
Okay, thank you. We can. Yes, so it's the debate now is the question.
If anyone's got anything
you'd like to add to the work programme discussional points? Oh, it's the Butler. Councillor Butler, please.
Not really to add anything, but just an observation. I perhaps should have mentioned it on the previous item, but the HWRC task and finish group that's been working recently, I think, without wishing to tempt Providence, because we haven't seen the final report yet, was a good example of a task and finish group working well. I mean, and so it was the group sort of visited the sites and lots of questions asked. So I just, as I say, I hope it's not tempting any negativity and all the rest of it in the future. But task and finish groups, when they run like that, I think are quite a good thing to do.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gowan?
This came out through Rushcliffe Borough Council. It was raised. Can we look at mobile signal coverage across the county, which I believe is actually, I was surprised it's covered as a county issue, and in particular the level of coverage when there are big events on in the north of the county, because south of the county, because when the big events are on, the mobile signal drops out. And I was surprised to realise the county have some responsibility in this area to maintain, to manage this coverage. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, if you're happy, I'll take that away and have a look into it and come back to you. Okay, thank you. Councillor Hollis?
Yeah, I think that's a fabulous point. Actually, something we were talking about again before was the super fast broadband element to it. You know, fibre optics, which kind of connects into all the kind of connectivity. But just a point for members is, for example, we're doing a bit of work around the new estate off Hucknall off Watnall Road, and every house has a super fast broadband connection to the home, from the box to the home. Whereas in my division, for example, it's a copper cable, but it was built like 2-3 years apart. And kind of think what's happening, and hopefully going forward, particularly the big developments across our areas, you'd hope that that super fast broadband element is paid for by the developer, not by us. But it's all part of that kind of connectivity point. But I just wanted to ask about some unallocated items, if Martin could help. So you'll notice that at the full council we did a report, an motion which was successfully passed on Storm Babbitt, and that seems to be unallocated. Can I ask that that's discussed as soon as possible? Secondly, Councillor Oliver has asked me to ensure that the flooding on Garden Road Eastwood is brought forward as soon as possible, which is again an unallocated item. And then further to this, I note that there's an unallocated item to gain assurance that the quality of free school meals is not being negatively impacted by the increased number of children in receipt of free school meals. I wanted to ask what this actually means, and can I ask for this to be tweaked to add to also investigate the impact of any rise in school dinner costs in Nottinghamshire? Over to you.
Right, with the, as members will know, with regards to project groups, the Constitution states we can only do one at any one time. So there'll need to be discussion. I feel, obviously from the information of the report, you probably want to do the one on the catering facilities management first, and there to be agreed. And when that's completed, which one of either like gully cleaning or the flooding one that you'd want to look at first, but we can only do one at any one time. With regard to the school meals, I think we can probably have a discussion that there may be a possibility of tagging that on, or it kind of like coming out of the group. But I'm sure myself, yourself, and the chairman and officers can have a chat about how we can get that sorted out.
Wonderful. Oh, yes.
Just an observation, that not to take anything away from the distress that's caused by flooding that Councillor Hollis has mentioned. Other areas had flooding as well. Normally, I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but when you've had serious flooding incidents, they're investigated anyway under Section 19 reports. So, is there a danger that by bringing one flooding site here that we're duplicating work that might already been done by another committee or group, or if we're going to do it here, should it be an overview as to flooding issues that happened in the recent storms around the county?
Yes, Martin.
Just a quick one with the Section 19 reports. The only reason why one specific before the storm, obviously all Section 19 reports come to committee. That was one that was just due to come, so we had that listed separately. What the advisory officers said, we've got, I believe it's 35 have got to come. So rather than bringing one, it was agreed that it would look better and be better, have a more straightforward process if that one was just brought with all the rest. So it's that's just because of the individual flooding, like you see with Fag Ravens, how we had works up there were listed individually, but because of the amount, they've just been listed as one.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, Councillor Curry.
I'm not sure how many members were at full council the other week, and I'm sure this was discussed and that the council said that it will be reviewing part of the emergency response flooding and everything anyway. So I think this is just I think we need to see what happens from there.
Yeah, I think that's all being tabled together, like I said, because of the size of it. I think that's the reality.
So if it's going to be reviewed, Chairman, who's doing the reviewing?
Is it this? Is it this?
When the Section 19 reports come in,
Yeah,
that'll be when that review will happen. We've got them all together in one lump, and we'll go through the lot.
I think potentially Councillor Wilmot, where Councillor Kerry may have got confused, as the council appointed this committee to do the review, and the point of my question was, when is it being allocated? So the county council, because of what was passed, it is now in the work programme which Mr Elliott described. But my point to my question is that motion and directive by the full council hasn't been allocated a date or time to have that discussion. I think Mr Elliott's reason, which I accept, is that we only can do one review at a time, so it's what we choose to do. So
once
that's the way I understand it.
Well, thank you for that. To complete this one, task and finish on dinners will be after that. Yeah, for catering, not dinners. That sounds really just.
That's your belly talking about.
Right, yeah, sorry, that's. Okay, wonderful. Has anybody got anything else to add, or are we? Councillor Wilmot.
Can I just wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you all?
You absolutely can. Merry Christmas to you too. And I just want to put something final on record, which arguably I should have done at the front of the meeting, but I wanted to put my thanks to Councillor Nigel Moxon, who chaired this committee before me, and wish him all the best in his new role as well. And as you rightly said, Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope you have a lovely one. Thank you very much.